Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm Riv, and I'll be your host for today's AI Adoption Forum Lunch and Learn. For anyone joining us for the first time, the AI Adoption Forum was created for business owners, professionals, and teams who want to make AI useful in their day-to-day work without needing to become technical experts. There's a lot of AI content out there, but much of it's either hype, theory, or focused entirely on the newest tool. We take a more practical approach. These sessions are about understanding real business problems, exploring where AI and automation can genuinely help, and being honest about where human judgment is still required. The goal is not to convince you to automate everything or buy more software. It is to help you make better decisions about what is actually worth implementing in your business. So today's session is called Stop Losing Your Client Calls, Capture Conversation, Get Them into Your CRM. Most businesses are already having valuable client conversations. The problem is what happens after the conversation ends. Important details often remain in someone's memory, get buried in personal notes, sit inside an email, or disappear into a transcript that nobody opens again. Today, James is going to walk us through the full process of making those conversations useful after the call. We'll look at the different options for recording phone calls, video meetings, and in-person conversations. We'll then work through a 4-step process: capture the conversation, classify and extract the useful information, connect it to the correct customer and CRM record, then log in the information and trigger the right action. We'll also look at where AI can reduce the work, where human review still matters, and how to decide whether a manual, AI-assisted, or more automated workflow makes sense for your business. This will stay as a practical roadmap level. We won't be doing any deep technical configuration or comparing every software platform. The goal is for you to leave understanding the options, the process, and the questions you need to answer before investing in a solution. The main presentation will run today for about 40 minutes. James will ask a few quick questions along the way. So feel free to participate in that chat or raise your hand. After the presentation, we'll open the floor for discussion and Q&A. That will be the best time to share what you're currently using, where information is getting lost in your business, and which part of the workflow you're struggling with. You can also visit AIadoptionforum.com to learn more about the AI Adoption Forum, see our upcoming sessions, and register for future events. Leading today's session is James Rowe. James works with businesses to turn technology into practical systems and implementation plans. His strength is taking something that could easily become overly technical and grounding it in what would actually work inside a real business. James, I'll hand it over to you.
All right, thanks, Riv. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen, and I've got some slides to take us through our conversation today. All right, so as Riv mentioned, what we're going to be talking about today is how to leverage AI and automation to get your customer conversations into your CRM in a more practical way, so it doesn't have to be so manual. Okay. So in here, oops. There we go. Okay, so what we're going to be covering today is we're just going to quickly highlight why you even want to do this. So, the information you're getting out of your customer calls, just talk about like what actually gets lost often without having a clear process for getting that information into your CRM. And then AI has really opened up a lot of interesting options for how to record your customer conversations, whether that's by phone, by video, or even in-person conversations. So we'll talk about some of the options there. And then I'll walk you through the 4 key steps that are needed to go from those conversations to get the information in a usable way into your CRM. And then also, we're going to step back a little bit and look at this at a more strategic level to talk about where AI integrations and also where human review and like human effort fits in still in this workflow, because there's a spectrum of where you can fit with your solution. It doesn't need to be fully automated, and it also doesn't need to be fully manual. There's different options that you can look at. And so that will lead into the conversation around the right level of automation. Okay. So the core problem that most business owners are dealing with is that your most valuable information that you're getting in your business shows up in these customer conversations. And so these conversations can happen all sorts of different ways. It can be an in-person meeting, it can be on the phone, it can be a video call. But the common problem is that those conversations, they end up being stuck in handwritten notes, or you might get a transcript from your call, but that transcript just gets stuck somewhere on a platform, or maybe it gets put in a document that lives in some kind of obscure folder in your drive, or you're trying to remember it. It's stuck in the head, in your head, or in your team members' heads. And the problem is that now is not getting translated into usable information in your CRM. So the next person who goes to interact with that client doesn't know what happened, and you lose track of the threads. So let's talk about what we do about that. So in terms of I'm sorry, my slides are really slow moving here. There we go. So why does this matter? At the end of the day, that information is helping you to qualify your customers. So in your sales process, you want to be able to have that information. And if you're like me, when I'm engaged in a conversation, I just don't do a very good job of writing notes down. So I miss key information that would help me qualify my customers better. Also, if you're having a series of conversations, especially with high touch sales opportunities, you're going to be, if you can track that information flow with your customers, you're going to be able to have better onboarding for your clients. So it's going to be an improved customer experience. There's also going to be better context for handoff between team members. And then something that's not talked about a lot is all those early conversations and interactions. You can extract information from that and enrich your CRM so that you have a more highly personalized outreach when you're sending automated emails. Now you can embed that information there. For example, we're working with a mortgage broker that when they're doing renewals for their clients, they actually know the bank that the mortgage is with, the rate that it's at, the specific renewal date. This is all information that's existing in there. It just needs to be embedded properly into their emails and personalized for their clients. So that's stuff that we're working with them to build and have that very personalized email where your customers like, hey, this company actually knows what I'm dealing with, and I don't have to go and remind them everything about my situation. Okay. So let's oops. Let's see if I can get this next slide. There we go. So as I mentioned, there are many tools out there that help you to take an audio recording or a video recording of your conversations, and they'll produce a transcript. So there's tools like Fireflies, Otter, Fathom, which I have my Fathom recorder on the call here. There's physical devices like Plod. You might have heard of Plod. This is an actual physical device that you can attach to your phone, or it's a pendant that basically is an audio recorder that's always on. And it creates these transcripts. But the problem is the transcript is just the first step. It's great for capturing it, but then how do you summarize that information in a usable form? How do you connect it with the right contact in your CRM? So do you have an email? Do you have a phone number? Do you have something identifiable? Or do you have to manually go and copy it in? Are the phone calls all the same calls? Is it a sales conversation one time? Is it a customer support conversation the next time? Or an existing client that you're interacting with? So each of those will have a different process for how you're managing your transcript. And then also you want to extract actions. What happens next? So AI is great for this kind of stuff. It can create these standardized, structured information from a transcript, but you need to know what kind of conversation they are and map it into there. So we'll talk about that in terms of the steps, how that works. So with recording options, as I mentioned, there's the different tools that are out there. But different types of conversations on how you're doing it, whether it's phone, video, or in person, will better connect with different types of technology. So for phone calls, there's tools like integrated call recording. So this would be like a tool like RingCentral. So if you're doing a lot of outbound calls, or you've got like a dedicated inbound team, you can route calls through a call platform like this, and all the call recording is integrated there, and you get transcripts and it can do summaries and things. For most small businesses, this isn't this is a kind of overkill for what they would need, and tends to be on the expensive side. But there's other options here. So if you use voice over IP, so you can create a virtual phone number. So this is like Twilio. Those platforms have the ability to get a transcript from voice calls. So it flows through your phone number and it will record everything. And it has like a small charge per minute of transcription. But this is a way that you can do that and get that emailed over to a specific email inbox and stuff like that. There also are, for a lot of you, you may just use your iPhone and just use your native recording to create an audio file. This, of course, means you now have to move that audio file off your phone and put it somewhere, and there's some manual steps to go put that together. But that might work fine if you only have a small number of calls you're dealing with. But we'll talk about some of the implications of how to integrate with different solutions there. For video conferencing, as I mentioned earlier, we've got tools like Fireflies and Otter and Fathom. We're using Zoom. Zoom has integrated transcription. So does Google Meet, Microsoft Teams. They all have some means to create a transcript. But you still need to put it somewhere and connect it, and then have it actually turn those into the right kinds of summaries. The most tricky one is when you're typically interacting with your clients in person. So those ones, there are solutions for that. Like I mentioned, there's Plod. I mean, you could just use your phone as well and just do an audio recording. They're controversial, but there's also the Meta Ray-Ban glasses that will record things. I'm personally a little freaked out by them, but some people swear by them. But those types of tools, they're basically always on recorders. So they'll capture things, but now you may not want to have an always on recorder, or the need to like turn it on and off is a bit of friction in there as well. The other thing is with all of these, you need to collect consent. As business, if in Canada, the consent rules are for personal conversations one-on-one, you only need one person to consent. So basically you're allowed to record a one-on-one conversation as a personal conversation without asking the other person. But as a business, you're not. And so it's important to make sure that people are aware that if you're going to be recording your sessions with them. Before I go on from here, I just want to ask, is anyone currently using recording solutions, and anyone want to share what they're currently doing with their customer calls?
Yeah, so I've got my one company, we use Dialpad as the phone service, so it does a transcript of every phone call we make. Other than that, that's the only recording type device. My business partner does have that Plod. The Plod is it that goes on the back of the phone.
Yeah,
he just got that. He's been trying it out, but that's all we've dabbled with so far.
Okay. Yeah. With your business, Zane, are your calls do you typically have like scheduled calls with clients and you're doing outbound to them when they've scheduled something, or do you have like unscheduled inbound?
It's a mix of both. A lot of it is unscheduled inbound. Clients just call when it's convenient for them. So the phone's kind of constantly always going off, but there's the odd scheduled one for sure.
Okay. And with your Dialpad solution, does that work very well with inbound? Does it come through a dedicated phone number on their platform?
Yeah, so we got, I'm just going to pull it up here to make sure I reference it right. We have these virtual phone numbers, like a virtual phone number, and then it transcripts it. I can see if I can pull up an example of it. I don't use this phone line that often.
Mm-hmm.
People have my personal cell, so they call me over there, but
do you get transcripts on your personal cell, or does that? Yeah, so this is one of the drawbacks, is like they have to go through that main number to get the.
Yeah, it's like a specialized digital number that Dialpad assigned us.
Yeah.
So if they don't call that, then no, it doesn't pick it up.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't even have an example here. I can't find it.
That's okay. Just curious. It sounds like you're experimenting with some different solutions here. And your business, is it primarily phone calls that you're dealing with, or do you also have in-person and video?
A lot of in-person, a lot of video. Like I use, I guess I do use Otter. for all the video calls. And it sends a decent transcript, email breakdown, stores all the data for us. But yeah, those are the only ones. It's kind of, the meetings are all over the place on our side of the business. So it's not go down.
And that's very common. Like, you know, when we talk about like these three options here, this is the challenge that people have, is often somebody has like, I've got one solution for phone calls, I've got one for video, and I've got a different one for in-person. Now I'm getting this like hodgepodge of different transcripts, different ways, and I got to manually glue them together, and everything's getting lost. And so this is this is very common, and it's the pain that most of our clients that we're working with run into. And so, you know, thank you for sharing. It's your example is actually pretty close to like what.
Yeah, I mean, it is the struggle for sure, because you got transcripts and video calls are sitting over here, transcripts from dial pad, I can't even find them, so that's not good. And and then the personal phone, you can't get any transcript, or I don't have it yet, right? But
yeah, exactly. So as Zane explained here, like the capturing is only one part of the problem here. It's the first step. So once you captured it, it now sits somewhere, and you got to figure out what to do with it. So how do you find it? How do you classify and extract that information to know how to turn it from a transcript into like usable call summaries, action items, and things like that? And then how do you go and connect and validate that into your CRM? Okay, so I'm going to go through the 4 steps here, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the different types of solutions before that. So as we've already talked about, the capturing in the real work environment, this really depends on like, where are you primarily having your conversations? So are they phone, video, or in person? Are they inbound or outbound? This drives the solution as well. So if you can't predict calls, you need something that's going to be able to automatically record that, so you don't have to remember to turn it on every time you have an unscheduled call. There's also questions about like, it's much easier to record calls when you're sitting at a desk and you're like regularly taking calls this way. But if you're like answering your mobile phone, so say in your example of your personal phone, you know, you actually have to remember to stop and say, hey, can I record this? And then maybe connect to Otters or do your iPhone recording. But it interrupts the flow of the conversation and things like that. Or even worse, if you're out in the field, you know, now you're needing to also, you know, there's distractions around that are also things that are going to make you forget to turn on those recordings. Another thing that comes up is you might have both business and personal calls on the same device. So if you've got a tool like Plod that sits on your phone, it records everything. Are you okay with that? You know, you may want to have those conversations recorded if you're dealing with personal stuff. So those always on recorders can actually be friction as well. We talked a little bit about customer consent, making sure that you ask. If you work through a platform, those often notify on your behalf. But if you're doing it where you're recording, say, on an iPhone, and you need to stop and ask and do that before you collect there. And then those recordings have there's secure information in there. So you want to think about like, how is it actually being secured? Who has access to it? And are you retaining these just to get the transcript and then deleting? And how do you manage that kind of stuff? And then the other really important consideration is, how often are you taking calls? Are you on calls all day long? Like, is this a major thing that you need to make sure you're capturing, or are you taking 1 or 2 calls a day? Is this something that a manually recording and manually copying it somewhere isn't so much of a burden? So it starts to get into the business case. Is this worth, like, of course there's friction, but is it worth the effort of automating and the expense of that to go along with it? So the next step is classifying and extracting the information. So with AI, so AI can take that audio recording, create the transcript, but it can also then process your transcript and turn it into a structured report. So it could be a sales qualification report, it could be a summary of the call, if it's like an internal meeting, it can extract action items, all these other things. but it needs to know what the context of the call is and what type of summary to create. So those different calls have different outputs. And so as you're mapping those, there's some information that needs to be given to the AI to guide it into the right type of transcript to do. And so things that can be used for that could be like, if it's a video call, the booking link or meeting type can be a clue to say, hey, this is a sales call. It's going to go and use the sales transcript processor. So, Otter and Fireflies and Fathom, they all have these different templates, and you can tell it which template to use based on the type of call. So this is a configuration thing you can put in. If you're doing audio files from an iPhone or with Plod, you need to actually manually tell it. It can't figure this out because it can't connect back to like the type of call that was there, or there isn't that information in the same way. Now, sometimes you could actually have the AI try and determine it from the transcript itself, but this tends to be really error prone. It's not very good at determining the type of call just from the conversation. So, I shouldn't say it's not very good. Depends on the tool you're using. But let's say that it only 80% of the time it gets it right, and then the other time it puts it in the wrong place. Is that going to work for your workflow, or does that just actually create more work? So these are things to consider when you're looking at that classification and extraction. You may still need a human here to do that step, and can't fully automate this stage. And then the third step is to then take the workflow and connect the conversation to the right CRM records. So once you've got it extracted, you still need to know who did you actually talk to. Can you collect a first name and last name either from something about the way that the meeting was booked, the AI transcript can pull it out, or something else? Or do you have an email that you can connect to, or a phone number? What's the identifier that will put this information to your CRM? So you need to be able to have that as part of the workflow and figure out how you get that. If you can't get it automatically, then again, a human needs to put this in and provide that context. Does the record already exist in the CRM? So that needs to be there. Obviously, it's a prerequisite. Some tools will allow you to actually create that record if it doesn't already exist. For example, with our same mortgage client that we're working with, they have their main inbound sales calls coming through Calendly. So someone books a Calendly call, they do the video call, it gets recorded, they create the transcript, and then Calendly is integrated with their Salesforce system so that the contact is automatically created, and a mortgage deal is also created so it can track that deal flow. And it takes the transcript and populates all the right information into that. So those are pieces that when you're looking at that integration, how do you flow the information through and extract it the right way? And then the final step is using that structured information to log the call summary. So just like you would with any kind of CRM touch point with a client, you would create a call log and then fill in the information. If you have that automation, it will put the transcript in there plus the summary. And then the other thing you can do is have it pull out that structured information about things like, with the mortgage client, it might be like, what's the date that they're looking for, they're going to plan to purchase the property. Like, is this near term? Is it like 6 months out? What's the stage they're at? Do they have a specific lawyer that they're working with? Is there, how much is the loan that they're trying to get? This information can be pulled out, and you can get a report that then you validate. So you obviously should have a human review this information. But once that's correct, it then can get inserted into the right places into their CRM. So you now have that enriched data without having to manually go put it all in yourself. Instead, you get the summary, you review the summary, and then it will go and insert into the CRM. And so this gives your team, when you're doing handoff to the next team member, in our case with mortgage brokering, goes to the underwriting team. That underwriting team now has that context and information that they can then rely on and go to the next stage without having to have like a debrief or writing out a document or handing over handwritten notes and things like that. So we get that benefit through the whole workflow. Okay. So before we go into this next slide, I want to actually pause here for a minute and ask if anyone's got kind of a high-level workflow that they already have in their business where they're doing this. Like for the most part, this is really just like a standard workflow for how you put information into your CRM. But most people are doing this manually. Is this matching up with how you guys are doing this? Does anyone have this kind of workflow or do it and want to share? Maybe they do it a little differently. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, mine's very old school and manual. I carry a notepad everywhere I go because the calls are so unexpected where they come from, and I'm just sitting here right beside me. I just jot down every single thing, and then I go in and I input it, or I have my underwriter go in and input and create the contact in the CRM and load everything up. Definitely could probably be more efficient about it, but we've tried. Like we got I do book my video links are through Calendly, and all the other stuff we already chatted about. I guess I just got to streamline and put it all together.
Yeah. So like you mentioned that you've got Dialpad and these other ones. So it sounds like you've got like the pieces, but it's the building the integration across them that is the missing piece. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
I mean, they're separate businesses too. Like my main phone line is my brokering business. And so when I opened up my capital, my lending company, I needed separate phone lines. So that's what went through Dialpad. So I mean, it's two separate companies that need two separate systems in a sense for compliance, and then just to keep everything separate. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So in terms of like when you're putting that information into the CRM, so do you do that yourself, or do you have like a package that you hand off to your underwriters to?
Yeah, I usually just give it to my underwriter. Like I'll do the initial client phone call, get the initial details, get the client's IDs, send it to the underwriter. They'll collect all the docs, put everything together, make a contact in the CRM, and load the application.
Yeah, sounds good. And then I have lots of questions for you, but
yeah, we can maybe do another meeting.
Yeah, sounds good.
So everyone else not listening to my free business planning, but
sounds good. Okay. Is there anyone else want to share how they're working with their CRM right now? Is there where are you finding the frictions in your process? Is there a step that's like extra painful for you that you really want AI to solve for you?
Well, I'll jump in so that Zane doesn't hog the entire spotlight there. But I used to use a program called Zoho, which kind of talked through all of the different elements, and it has a CRM and project management software and all that other kind of stuff. But I'm not using it anymore. And so yeah, I'm kind of like Zane in that I'm wondering what there is that we can, can we create an agent or a number of different agents and have them all linked together. So that's one of the things I'm interested in, James.
Yeah, sounds good. So Richard, what are you using for your CRM right now?
I'm using HubSpot right now.
HubSpot, okay. All right, sounds good. Yeah, we won't talk too much about agents specifically here. One of the things that I find is that when I'm working with clients, we jump to talking about the technical solutions too quickly, and we're missing the big picture of like operationally, how does your business actually work? And so having an agent can solve a particular friction part, but only if it has the right information to do it. So I'll use Zane's example because I know the mortgage brokering process fairly well. Imagine like the underwriter is kind of your agent. You know, if you were to build an AI agent, they need to do the same thing. So you have to give them the right information to be able to make the right decisions to put the information in the right places in your system. So whether it's following up with the client or writing a certain email or putting data into the right places, you know, if you're doing an application to one of the funders, that decision making is being done by a human. If you were to try and replace that with an AI, it would need to have all of the context to be able to make that decision that the human already kind of automatically has in the back of their head. But you have to feed it there because the agent has no memory. It can't remember what you did last time. You're basically giving it clear instructions every single time, and you need to be able to define that workflow for the agents to work well. And this is where, if you don't have that, the agent, it will try to do something and it may or may not be right. And just because it gets it right once doesn't mean the next time will be right. So what ends up happening is you get a lot of like spectrum of answers, which isn't really very desirable when you're trying to build reliable workflows. So today's session is really more focused at like what are the strategic questions you need to be able to answer in order to talk to the technical team to say, this is what I need to go build. Whether that's internally you're building yourself or you're working with an external contractor or even a tool vendor to say, this is what I need to have in place. Okay. All right, so let's carry on here. In terms of the next part here, I wanted to talk about the technical solution menu. So this is there's a wide spectrum here. So starting with the fully manual workflow, you know, this is where basically your team is doing everything. So it's recording handwritten notes, it's summarizing your call that way, it's reviewing and copying your information manually into your CRM. So from a technical cost, there's no technical cost really, like you only have your CRM cost. Your complexity is very low. Your humans are following a standard operating procedure, and you have a lot of control over the outcomes. On the far ends of the other side of the spectrum is this fully integrated workflow. So this is where we have agents involved, and we've automated all the integrations across all your tools and stuff. And so whether it's you've purchased a platform that you're working with, or whether you've built a custom one, it handles the entire end-to-end workflow. So when you get into this, the costs are very high from a technical perspective, but you also have something that's extremely scalable and it doesn't have a lot of human interactions. So, you know, all the big companies that do their, have automated onboarding of clients and stuff, this is where they're doing, like, you go to any of the software businesses that are product led. When you do your onboarding, you don't talk to people, it's all automated. But you need a team that's going to build that and stuff. So the complexity of building that's high, very high. And at the same time, because it's all custom built now, you've got a lot of control. So let's kind of put aside the two extremes here and talk about the middle. So there's the AI assisted workflows, which are kind of the next step up from the manual workflow. And this is doing things like creating that initial transcript, processing those transcripts and creating the structured data. And then you might have an integration where it puts that information into the CRM if it can map to those contacts it finds. So these are, I guess, is a reasonable cost and a reasonable complexity, but it doesn't give you a lot of control. You're kind of dependent on whatever your tools are that you've chosen to work there. You've got a connected workflow. This is where now you can use tools like Zapier or Make.com, or there's a newer integration platform called N8N. These are tools that allow you to then glue your different systems together. So if you're, let's say you're using Google Meet. Google Meet doesn't have a native integration to take your transcript from your call and put it into other tools, but you can go and use Zapier to do that. And if you're using HubSpot, you know, there probably isn't a native integration there. So again, Zapier can connect with that and move things along. So it gives you this ability, and it also allows you to then connect other AI tools that will process a transcript, create the right type of summary, and it gives you that higher level of control. And then they're on the even further integrated prepackaged system are CRM native workflows. So this would be if you stayed entirely within the ecosystem. So like Salesforce has these integrated platforms where it might be specific to your type of business. For field services, for like home services, tools like Jobber and stuff they have more of this integrated workflow that's specific to the type of business and stuff. So these give you more integrations, but again, they come at a higher cost. You've got to have to have your whole team with a subscription, and there's ongoing monthly costs that comes with that. So looking at this menu, there's lots of different ways to solve the problem. They have different pros and cons. You need to kind of look at those, but to be able to answer that really comes back to what are some of the strategic questions, as well as the business case. So when clients come to me, we have a conversation about they're like, I'm frustrated. I have this very repetitive process where I'm like, I always have to copy my audio transcript off my phone to this other system and then process it. Or I've got to do this other really repetitive piece. And before we go too far to talk about like creating a technical solution there, I ask about like these 5 questions. So how frequently does this happen? Is this often enough that it's going to justify investment? And what I mean by that is it driving real human labor costs? And is it blocking you from scaling your business? If the answer to at least one of those questions isn't yes, it probably isn't worth automating from a pure business perspective. You may be irritated and not want to do it anymore, but it's not going to actually save you money in your business. Reliability. So this is where I was talking about agents. Can the system reliably do the same thing over and over again and get the same result? Traditional software is highly reliable because it has strict rules. You basically say, if I get this input, this output happens. It doesn't change. But AI doesn't work that way. AI will interpret and try to make sense of the question every time it gets it, and it may or may not give you the same answer. So can your workflow handle that situation, or do you need something that's more reliable? Is the piece that you're looking at, is it constraining you? Is it limiting your capacity and slowing your growth? That is a key question for your business case. And then the value. Something that might work well operationally internally in your business may actually be a friction for your clients. So forcing, say, someone to go and always book a call with you through an online form, and you won't take calls other than like scheduled calls, makes it way easier for you to manage your processing of this thing, but it's going to piss off your customers. So balancing that as well, a solution that works internally may not be a good idea for your business from a client perspective. And then risk. With these, especially when you start going down the agent path, these agents are doing things invisibly. It's not easy to see how they are actually thinking and determining things. So what happens when something goes wrong? How do you track back to figure out where it went wrong and how to fix it? So you need, when people talk about AI governance, this is part of what that means is when an answer comes out, how did that answer get determined? And how do I go figure out, the steps of what that was doing? And then how do I manage and watch that over time? So you're delegating work when you give it to an AI agent, and you have to be able to manage it and say, well, is it doing the right thing? And how do I make sure that it's staying on track? So these all come back to the business case and whether this will work long term. Okay, so the next couple slides here, I'm going to go through some strategic questions about that you need to answer to be able to then go to the next stage with this stuff. So before we go into the choosing the tools, we want to map how conversations are really happening. So as I mentioned earlier, are they inbound, outbound, or combination of calls, phone, video, or in person, scheduled, unexpected? And then which conversations are valuable enough to capture? Maybe you don't want to actually capture all of them. Maybe there's only certain ones that matter. And that may depend on what kind of role you have in your company. So, for example, sales calls you probably want to capture. Customer support calls you probably want to capture. Internal meeting calls or internal discussions may or may not be important to capture depending on what they are. So there's some of that aspect. Also, how many calls are happening each week? So that gets back to your frequency. And how much manual work can you guesstimate how much effort is being put into this currently? Is it 30 minutes a week? Is it 2 hours a week? Is it 10 hours a week? That will really determine how important this is. And then what's your process for consent? So this one is important just because it is a compliance issue that you want to make sure that you're covering. And then strategic questions around the AI and CRM design. Can you identify the different call types? You don't have to have this all figured out ahead of time, but at a general level, do you have some clarity around what those look like? What do you want to extract from those calls? What actually matters in terms of what your team needs? Do you have information that's going to be able to allow the system to determine the right template to use to extract the information? And how do you connect it to your CRM? Then there's a question of the highly reliable information that's extracted. You can put that straight in the system, but there's other things that may require human review. What are those? How do you determine those? And then for actions, what actions should happen next after calls? Some of these will be just standard things that you do as part of your standard operating procedures, and then other ones may be context specific from the call with your customers. And then what's the backup plan? What's plan B if something fails in this? Is the original transcript being kept? Is the original recording being kept? Can you go back to the original source material and be able to redo the workflow manually if you need to, if something goes wrong in the process? So you want to have a backup plan if something goes sideways. Okay, before I carry on, I want to just open up for some thoughts here on, for those who have been exploring this and looking into it, are there other questions that you have around and things that you've been considering about, where things are difficult? Where are the places and pitfalls that you're running into when you're trying to do this? Does anyone want to share any examples of what they've tried and that what didn't work out the way they were hoping?
I don't think I've had necessarily any pitfalls because I haven't really tried much. I think the biggest thing for me is that I just know the way AI is going, and I don't want to be left behind. So I want to get up to date with systems and ways to make my life more efficient and easier, so I can work on scaling rather than the minute tasks. So that's why I'm here. Riv invited me, and I thought this would be a good idea. Just learn more about AI and how I can utilize it, right, before I get left behind. And the competitors get better systems than I do. And so,
yeah. Okay, great.
I'll mirror Zane's comments there. It's really haven't really done much with it, but I know that there's a ton of potential, and it's kind of like what can I learn so that we can implement it to get that leg up on other people.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds good. So we'll talk about that now. So we're going to talk a little bit about a simple workflow you can use now. So with this 4-step process, the way to get started with it is just starting off with one call type. So whether you're doing this with sales call or customer support or something else, where's a call type that you're it's frequent, it meets those 5 criteria that I was mentioning above. It's frequent, it's painful to go process this, and there's a handoff that you need to be able to keep that information moving to the rest of the team. So choose that call type, start with that, and start recording them. So you can use one of these different tools. So the easiest way to get started if you're doing with phone calls is with the iPhone recorder. So you just record the call, save the audio file. And then Otters is a tool that allows you to take those audio files and process it to get a transcript. And so that one is very easy, but it does require some manual steps to move the file to Otters. But once you have that, now you've got a summary. You can build a template for how you want that information extracted, so that you can set up in Otters. And then now you've got that information, you can go, okay, well, that at least gives you the structured data that you can put manually into your CRM. So Zane, in your case, like that can be a way to give that structured report to your underwriter that doesn't require you to give them handwritten notes. And you can still handwrite your notes and take a screenshot of it or something, or take a photo and send it. But this is another way that you can also get that information. It also allows you to do it without having to make any commitment to like buy another subscription to Dialpad and other things, and allows you to get started. So that's really the main piece here is getting in there and just starting to get your hands dirty. So for those who haven't tried anything yet, that would be the place to start. What I find with a lot of clients is that they're coming after they've started, like they've tried this and they've run into the frictions of like, I'm tired of copying all my audio files. I don't know how to get it to automatically pick the right processing template, and I wanted to integrate into my CRM. So they're a little bit further down the road, having already tried some things and experimented, and now need help to go to the next stage. So this is where I would start if you haven't done anything yet, and you can play around there. So with that process, starting with that simple repeatable conversation type, if you can't answer all those initial questions about like volume and reliability and that kind of stuff, it's hard to build a business case to know how much money to invest in this. So this is where you can experiment with that first call type and learn and measure to see how it's going. So this is where you can track like, okay, how many times is this happening a week? How much time is being saved by that? Is the summary coming out as high quality, and is it accurately capturing the things that were done in the conversation? You might not be able to get to the classification accuracy and CRM matching quite yet, but that you can start to see how you would track that kind of information. And as you start to see that, that's where the automation comes from afterwards. Is you've got the building blocks from those 4 steps, and now you want to connect them together and into an integrated flow. So as part of the work that we do, so with Future Flow Operations, we provide full service support for customers who are wanting to go and build these integrated workflows and AI solutions. But we're also getting a lot of requests for people who are tech savvy and want to build their own. So they've already got the kind of building blocks, and they're looking for more help with like advisory and guidance through the process and supporting on that. So we've been experimenting with building something called AI Workflow Labs. And so we're building some tutorial sessions similar to what we talked about today, where we go and we actually go and say, okay, here's the tools, and like, here's how you would go connect them together. And we work through a tutorial to create an example. So these are done as a group cohort where we come together and delivered as a virtual tutorial session, and basically walk you through how to go build these workflows. So if this is something that you'd be interested in, the QR code here goes to a page with more information about the tutorials that we're looking at building. We've got an interest list there that you can sign up for if you'd like to follow along. So we're planning to launch these in September. And so we're collecting interest right now to see what people want to learn about. Okay. And to wrap things up for today, I wanted to just kind of open this up now for discussion for the last few minutes of the session, and let anyone kind of share their thoughts or ask questions as we wrap up for today.
I appreciate you guys taking the time to run this. It was good to see or hear the different options that are out there. So I'm going to play around with a few, as you said, see how actually pay attention to the systems I do have, play around with them, see how they work. And then I'm assuming you guys will probably get a phone call from me when I get frustrated with it and don't want to do it myself. So.
All right, sounds good. Well, thanks, Zane. Yeah, anyone else want to share?
Yeah, no, a lot of great knowledge that you guys shared with us here today. Just a quick question. I noticed that obviously you're recording all of this. Are you going to be emailing the recording out to us? I'm kind of a slow digester, so I'll end up going through this video a couple of times to pick up some of this stuff. But yeah, I'll definitely be checking out your what you're offering there in fall.
Great, sounds good. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, we share out these videos afterwards, so we'll send that out through the Luma invites, so you'll get a follow-up email on that.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. Anyone have any other questions or specific things that they want to ask about?
I don't think so. Do you guys have I think I asked Riv this yesterday. So certain CRM that you see is the better option compared to all the options that are out there, like Zoho and Brokey, and I know Rich said don't bother with Velocity, so I won't bother setting that up. But yeah, what CRM do you guys recommend?
The honest answer is whatever your team is willing to use. One of the biggest frictions is that,
so which one should I tell everybody to use?
Okay, fair enough. Well, then more for yourself. Like the biggest friction I see is that people don't like entering data into CRMs. Yeah. So like the systems only work as well as the data that goes into them. So that is really the big friction. That's why everyone comes and says, hey, how do I get all this data into my system? Is like, you want the magic button that just says, hey, okay, it's going to go fill it all in. Most of the CRMs are pretty similar. So I personally use HubSpot because they have a free option that allows you to like track all your email, just stuffs all the email in and creates contacts from that. That's really easy, but it also isn't the most flexible in terms of like you got to pay as soon as you want to start doing anything interesting.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And it doesn't quite give you the flexibility of like a Salesforce system, which has has a massive set of integrations that you can connect with it. So it gives you a lot of flexibility, but again, Salesforce costs scale really quickly. So those are great if you plan on growing and you can justify that higher cost. Like we're talking $100+ a month, and they can go up way from there, but that's per seat. So you're spending pretty significant money for the CRMs. If you're just needing something simple, so in the mortgage brokering business, like you might have heard of a tool called Jungo or Jungo. You've heard of that tool?
That one you mentioned a couple of times. I haven't looked into it though.
Yeah. So that's the one that it's a Salesforce add-on. It is built specifically for the real estate market. It's both for real estate agents and brokers. So it's got different plugins. But for the brokering side, what it does, Velocity obviously is a tool that you use for doing all of your applications to the different lenders and stuff. But the client we were working with didn't want to use Velocity because they didn't control it. It was controlled by their network. So if they ever left and moved to a different network, they would lose all their customer relationship stuff. So they wanted a separate system. They've been using Jungo. With Jungo, you get all the flexibility of Salesforce where you can add all these integrations and build onto it. And one of the things that they did was they took both the CRM aspects of managing the relationships with clients, but they also built like an operating system view where they could track all of their in-process loans and be able to know where it is, look at who the assigned underwriters are, and track them through the life cycle. And then when the mortgage mortgage got closed, they then had like renewal dates where it would automate the renewal contact cycle with clients and stuff. So there's some flexibility there. Like I would say that if you're looking for something specific to the brokering side, I would look at those type of tools as opposed to a more generic HubSpot or one of the other ones like that.
Fair enough. Okay, appreciate that.
All right. Well, we're at the top of the hour here. So I'm happy to stick around for a couple more minutes if anyone has other questions, but otherwise, thank you all for participating today. And yeah, if there's anything I can help with, feel free to reach out.